I want to begin you off with a study of Photoshop by looking at how you get into Photoshop and how it works in your behalf. This is my screensaver, and I'm going to come down here and click on Photoshop that is already opened, and it just opens up I'm into Photoshop. I'm seeing the screensaver behind my Photoshop area. I haven't installed a new document or a new artboard yet. To do that, I go to File and I say New, and it asks me for a page. It's thinking about it as a little circle, colored circle turns, and it says New. Now I can give it a name right away, and I'm just going to call this Opening. Maybe Opening Photoshop. Okay, now the presets, I'm not going to worry about that now. Let's see. Don't want to go too far down in the defaults. Let's just leave that alone. My pixels here, I am going to change those to inches. So it's a 7 by 5 image that I'm going to open. The resolution, I'm going to click on resolution and make that 400. That's a high resolution to work with, but gives good quality. And it is RGB color. It is 8-bit. The background will be white. So be sure when you open this up that you're seeing that in inches, because if you want to work in website, you'd be going with pixels, but don't use millimeters or anything else. Use inches, and then hit OK, and it opens a new document. Now the new document has its rulers in there. If there aren't rulers, Command R takes the rulers out, and Command R will put the rulers in. I always like to take, this happens to be a 5 by 7. You can see there's the 7, there's the 5. I like to open my screen up, and I'm going to put it so I can park it. I'm grabbing the little corner down here with the size is my working area, and I'm going to put it, well, I can go all the way across the screen, or I can leave some space for my palettes. Let's do this, leave a little space for the palettes. The toolbox, I just park over here in the corner without overlooking or overruling the ruler. Now the ruler in this case does set up with the 0 at the upper left and the 0 at the upper left, so it's 8 or 7 across and 5 down. When we were in Illustrator, that is the other way around. That's why you have to grab this thing and set it to the corner. Grab the guidelines here in the corner and set it there, but it's already done that way in Photoshop. I'm not sure why they don't do it that way in both of them. There isn't any tear-off capacity for the tools in Photoshop. If there's two tools or 2 or 3 tools in a bucket, you'll just see this little black triangle in the corner, and it'll show you in this bucket with the eyedropper there are 4 tools, but they don't tear off per se. The move tool or the arrow tool here is the most important, and you'll find that moves things around. But the other thing about this, and there's less tools to use, but they are all powerful. The foreground and background color. Now if I click on the foreground color, it shows me I'm in a dark area. Here is black, as we remember from our color picker, and here is white, and here is this orange that's on this rainbow scale right here. There it is in full color, and here it is with some black added, more black or more white or gray. But that gives the foreground color. The background color is also solid. It's not fill and stroke, it's foreground and background, and you can switch them with a curved arrow. Now in Windows you can see there's a lot of different things you can open up here. A lot of things that will help you get your tools in your palette tools open up. There are only 3 that I open for most of the work I'm doing. One is the layers palette, and it comes with channels and paths. Now later on, channels and paths will work together with layers, but I'm most interested in layers. And the layers that comes in, you can modify this a little bit and widen it or narrow it to some degree. You can depending on the size of your screen. I park this over here in the corner because, or this right side, of the screen, because sometimes your layers get to be quite extensive and they're going to have a lot of layers. And if that's the case, you're going to have a scroll bar here, depending on the size of your screen. The other two that I like to have open, and I'm going to pull them apart so you can see them, is Navigator, which is in fact a little window that shows the thumbnail of what you're working on the big screen, and you can zoom in and out with this bar here. The other one is History, which allows you to see all of the steps that you've done. Now, the reason history is important is that you have in Photoshop Command Z only one undo. In Illustrator, you had multiple undos. You could go back a long ways. Command Z, Command Z, Command Z. Photoshop, you have one undo. You can go back once with a Command Z keyboard command. But everything you do shows up here. Now, the first thing I did was opened a new document, so it says new. And if I do other things, they start to show up here. And if oh gosh, I've gone 4, 5, 6 things down, I don't want that, I can come back up here and click the layer that I want to be on, 4, 5, or 6 back, and it will go there. That's the good news. The bad news is that if I close this document, I save it someplace, give it a name, save it, and close it. When I open it again, I'm back to new. It doesn't retain the history once you've closed it. So before you close a document, you got to be sure, okay, this is where I'm going. I'm okay with that. You may have multiple layers down here, but still the history is that which allows you to go back and make corrections or start it in a different direction someplace. So remember that. Now, what I do is I park History and Navigator together. Whoops, I got to sit this thing so it sits right in there, the little tabs like that, so that there'll be one in front of the other, so I can click back and forth as needed. I need the Navigator more often. And so the Navigator History and the layers with its channels and paths, but the layers is the thing I find most important here. So that gets us started, except that now we have to have something there. Now I'm going to take my Marquee Tool here, and I'm going to make a shape. Now in this case, the shape has the marquee lines on it, or what we refer to as marching ants, and I have one layer given to me already, the background, and it's locked. What I like to do is click on that word background. Notice it's italicized. Click, click, 2 clicks, you get a new layer palette open, and I'm just going to give it the name back, as in background or any number of things you can call it. But notice when I do that, the lock goes away, and the word back is now in regular lettering, meaning it's workable. It's not locked. Now I'm going to make a new layer with this little button down here. It looks like a page with the corner turned up. Click. It says layer 1. I'm going to immediately name that layer. Click, click. Now the second and third and fourth layers don't open up a box like background did. It's just you can do it right there on the layer. And I'm going to call that layer rectangle. And when I click away, the blue indicates that's the active layer. And I've got this marching ants thing, and that says you're going to put something there. And I'm going to put the foreground color, which means to put the foreground color in this, you hit Option Delete, the big delete key on the keyboard. Now, don't worry about Option Delete. I'm going to delete this. No, the Option Delete is the one that puts the action keys that puts the foreground color, black, into that given space. Let's say that I wanted an orange circle, and I come over here with, now remember I had to change this marquee to the oval, and I come here with a shift in the Option key, and I'll put a circle right there. Shift in the Option, let's see. There, now I'm getting a circle. And I want the, well, let's see, I've got to do this. I've got to deselect the marching ants here. Let's do another line here, another layer, and call that layer circle. Okay, now I'm going to take my circle marquee and I'm going to make a circle. Let's get it here inside, and there's nothing in it just yet, but I want to put the background layer. So that is the Command key. The foreground layer is the Option key and Delete key. The background is the Command key and the Delete key. And it puts that in there. Okay, so now I have the circle on one layer, and if I turn the layer off, the circle goes away. If you hit Command D, the marching ants go away, or if you hit the tool you made it with is the Marquee Tool. If I put that on the inside, you see that little arrow and marquee shows up. Another way I can get rid of the marching ants is just to go inside of it and click, and the marching ants go away. Now I'm taking my Move tool, and I'm on the circle, and I can move that around. I don't have to have it selected per se. I just move it around. Now, if you want to see the bounding box, up here in the menu, it says Show Transform Controls. Click on that and make sure that, or when you do, there's a check mark there. And then you will see bounding boxes for whatever object you are selecting. And that bounding box has all the same features. It allows you to size or scale or move the shape of these things around. So I'm going to go back to my circle and just move it to where I think it ought to be. And now I have the background layer. Now see, when I turn the background layer off, when you see this gray and white checkerboard in Photoshop, that means there is no color there. When I turn it on, there's a color. Now I could make the background color something other than white. If I turn on and off the eyeball, there comes and goes the black rectangle, and the same thing with the orange circle. So the layering becomes very important here, because you're going to have any number of shapes. I'm going to make a new layer here and call this one Post, because I'm going to make a upright rectangle here, and I'm just going to put this upright rectangle right there, and I'm going to say, let's see, what color do I want it? I'm going to go to my foreground color, click on that twice, I get my color picker. I'm going to pick a darker brown here. See, it shows up here. The last color was black, and here's the new color, and I OK that, and that brown shows up here in my foreground color, and then the foreground color is Option Delete, and there it goes inside of the marching ants, to which I can go inside and say, go away marching ants, or hit the Command D, and that takes the marching ants away. Now the post, I can drop down here in my layer arrangement and put it behind the rectangle, and so now the post is behind the rectangle. If you want to look at this and say, okay, there they are, turn off the Show Control Transform, and you won't see the bounding box, and now you're looking at the artist that's going to appear. If you say, my goodness, that, but I'm going to turn that back on so I know what I'm seeing here. If it's on, I can see what layer I've got active. I can say that brown is too dark, so I'll come back here and pick a lighter brown, and now it's still selected, so Option Delete, put the light, whoops, I had the wrong one, Command Z, I got that one undo. Make sure I'm on the post, and that the post is, oh, I have to select the post. The bounding box isn't a selection tool. Here is the Magic Wand tool. Now, if it opens up and you've got the Quick Selection tool open, come down here and get the Magic Wand one. With the Magic Wand, I can select, by just clicking on that post, I get the post, and there's the marching ants. Now I have it selected. It's not necessarily that you have the bounding box there that it selects it. You have to have the Magic Wand tool, click on it, and now Option Delete, it puts the new color in the post. So if I say I want to select the black, I come over here and I select the black, and well, it didn't select the black, it selected all the negative space, because remember, I'm on the post one. So Command D, I have to go to rectangle, and I have to select the black, and you click on the black and it selects the inside. Another way to get the black, and especially if it's a complicated shape, is to click out here. Now I'm on the black rectangle, click on the white, and you get all of the negative space. See, it's selected all the space that is not the black rectangle. The circle and the post don't come to play here because they're not active. So here I have all the space that's not the black selected. Now if I do want the black, I come up here to Select, and I say inverse that. And so for all the negative space that it has selected, now it's gone back and selected the positive space. So I'll get used to this selecting process, because that Command D takes off the ants now. That allows you to get these things to work for you. And remember, you can turn off and move the off and on the shapes, and you can move the layers around so you get the exact proportion and placement that you want to have for working with on your project. Eventually, when you have this the way you want to, you're going to go to File, Save As. Now, not eventually. You should be saving as, like every 5 minutes. So if some power failure happens, you don't lose the whole document. But I'm going to save as. Remember, I call this Opening Photoshop, and it's going to go to the desktop. You can go to a particular file. You can go to any number of places, but I'm going to send it to the desktop and hit Save and OK that, and that makes it then it's thinking about it now. If I click back here, I'm looking back at my Finder, and there it is, Opening Photoshop PSD. That means Photoshop.psd, and it is saved. If I come back here, then there I am. So you save as you go, save as you go, save as you go, and remember, you're going to set your tool. Set your tools here, and we'll talk about the tools a little bit more as we look at the next round of movie. But there's the tools, here's the palettes that you need, and here's the artwork. Remember, you can zoom in and out of this as you need to, and if you can also zoom by hitting the Command plus key, goes up in space, or Command minus key goes down in shape, or you can hit the Command 0, and that will give you a full screen. There you go. I like to have my screen, like I said, over here so I can see the rulers around the toolkit, and then I stretch this out so I have some gray area so I can actually see the actual real deal there. Guidelines in Photoshop are temporary. You just put them out there and leave them where you want them to be and line things up, and then once you're through, they're not considered to be permanent. You take them back and put them back into the ruler area. So this is the opening layout and structure of Photoshop.